So, if you remember from the Haggadah, we learned one of the very first passages of Avadim Hayinu. It says that "Ilu lo hotzia Kadosh Baruch Hu et avotenu Mitzrayim," if not for Hashem taking us our ancestors out of Egypt, we would still be oppressed by the Egyptians. I don't think the Mishnah or the Braita means it literally; it just means that without that first Exodus, we would all still be selfish and oppressed by our own desires and addictions, etc. And therefore, the Braita concludes, and afilu chachamim, even if we were all wise, all intelligent, all aged, and all knowledgeable in Torah, the dat, which is the connection to the divine inspiration of understanding, still the command would be upon us to tell the coming out of Egypt, and the more one tells of the coming out of Egypt, the more admirable it is. And so that as an introduction to the halacha today about the difference between men and women, about what the study of Torah is, this is all written in the masculine because in the masculine we have to continue studying even the Exodus out of Egypt because it is so fundamental for our Jewish faith and belief. So there's a fundamental difference between the mitzvah of Torah study for men and for women. The men's mitzvah is to study Torah, whereas the mitzvah for women is to know the mitzvot of the Torah so that they can live accordingly. And there's a spelling mistake here. In other words, a woman who knows all the practical halacha, as well as all the fundamentals of faith and ethics on the level and with the profundity necessary to guide her through life, has no further mitzvah to continue studying. Of course, she's allowed to continue studying, but she is not obligated anymore. However, a man who already learned the entire Torah, as illustrated in that Braita from the Haggadah, even if he were to know it by heart, is still required to continue studying and delve deeper into the Torah. This week, I actually watched a video about one of the greatest Kabbalists in recent history, and one of the things that the person who was describing him, who's not Jewish as far as I know, was saying was that he managed to memorize all five books of Moses by heart. And from my experience, that's not really a very big deal. I have a friend who memorized all of Deuteronomy. I have friends who not only memorized the five books of Moses, but also the books of Esther and other books. So memorizing the Torah is not really a thing in Judaism because we have the oral Torah, which we do have to memorize, and the written Torah, which either we shouldn't or we don't have to because it's all written and there's not going to ever be another version of the written Torah. So, hence there are two parts of Torah study. The first is to understand the Torah's instructions in halacha and in faith, which means how to actually practice them and believe in what Hashem said in order to live a full life. Men and women are equally obligated in this respect. The second part inclines towards an in-depth scrutiny, analysis, and abstraction, even things that are not relevant to our life. Men are obligated in this, but not women. Men and women, therefore, have different curricula. The most important part of the women's syllabus is to know all the fundamentals of faith, ethics, and halacha, as we said yesterday, Torah imecha, the Torah that your mother teaches you, whereas the men's syllabus, in addition to the study of halacha, which obviously they need to know what to do and the faith and ethics that are related to it, should also emphasize learning Gemara and its commentaries. Nevertheless, women who wish to delve into the Torah for God's sake may study Gemara in depth as well. It's not about they're prohibited, it's just that they're not obligated, on condition that they first learn thoroughly the fundamentals of faith, morality, and the laws that they must know from the written and the oral Torah. In particular, intellectually sophisticated women must study extensively and internalize the fundamentals of faith and halacha before delving into the Gemara, so that their reverence for God precedes their wisdom. Because sometimes if we learn something in the Gemara, which was really a discussion between men, uh, especially in the connection to relationships between men and women. Some of those things were actually taught only to men, not because women are excluded, but because there's even in other kinds of study. There's women's groups and men's groups because they speak a slightly different language. Women is more from the emotion, and men is more from the rationale. And the example that we gave a while back was that um, the reason the Torah does not want a woman to be a judge in a matter of capital punishment is because women are more inclined to give life as opposed to uh, taking life out of somebody. So even just a very practical example, when you see people demonstrating in front of a jail where there's going to be an execution in the middle of the night, the absolute majority of the people protesting are women. And again, it's because they are the givers of life, not because they're stupid or any other derogatory term for that. So, for women who do not possess an especially strong desire to delve deeply into the Torah, the sages' general guidelines is do not engage in theoretical debates about differing opinions, rather study a clear, practical summary of the halachot and their reasons, and delve deeply into the principles of faith and ethics, because again, women are superior to men in the matter of faith and ethics. And we talked yesterday about the Shunammite woman who believed in Hashem and his prophets a lot more than even her husband did. And so this is the guidelines. And continuing, there were eras in which it was sufficient for women to learn the laws relating to the household and family on a rudimentary level and then hear a bit of moral admonishment. This was enough to instill an identity within them and generate the proper dedication to fulfilling the Torah and leading a Jewish life. However, in recent generations, with the increase in leisure time, the development of general education, and professional specialization in various fields, it is obvious that women must learn much more than they had in the past. Indeed, under the guidance of prominent rabbinic leaders of recent generations, educational and religious institutions for girls and women have been founded. One prominent example is Beis Yaakov, which we mentioned yesterday, movement established in Poland by Mrs. Sarah Schneer, with the encouragement and support of eminent Polish rabbis. These modern changes do not negate the fundamental halachic difference between men who are commanded to study Torah as a theoretical and intellectual endeavor, and women who are not obligated to do so. Rav Kook explains that it is precisely this distinction between men and women that allows for the emergence of a state of harmony between analytic intellectualism and the vibrant and natural emotion that unites and establishes the words of Torah in real life. So, as today is Friday, and I apologize for running a little bit late, the idea of what was the purpose of sending Judah into Goshen before everybody else, if I can find it. Okay. Here. Okay, so this isn't the quote I wanted to, but it says in the verse that Ve'et Yehuda shalach lefanav Goshna. Sorry, in the third aliyah. Sorry, fourth aliyah. Jacob sends Judah forwards to go to Goshen, and Rashi says that the reason was to be able to establish a Beit Midrash. But if you look at the count of the people that came into Egypt with Jacob, it mentions women many times, but the actual count is only of men. And the reason is because women are more modest appropriately so, and so we don't count them in the counting. But the rabbis tell us that what really fulfilled the number 70 was Yocheved, who was born as they came into Egypt, because if you count together with Yosef and his two sons, we only come to 69. And so the Gemara says you must understand that Yocheved came in with them, or was born right there as they were entering Egypt. And that also gives us the idea of why it was only 210 years that they were in Egypt, 130 of Yocheved, from when she was born until she gave birth to Moses, and Moses comes back to the Pharaoh and stands before him when he's 80. And so that is the number of 210. And the word ketz, which means end, which is what Yaakov wanted to tell his sons in next week's Torah portion, Acharita Yamim, the end of days, is 190. So Hashem subtracted 190 years from the 400 that he promised Abraham, and they only lived in Egypt for 210 years. And we'll stop here and open up for questions.